beautiful YouTube. Hello, beautiful YouTube. It is Emily. I hope you're having a wondrous day, evening, morning, whatever moment it is for you. Welcome to this channel for anyone tuning in for the first time. And hello to all the longtime watchers. So today I am going to be talking about what is temple artistry, what a temple artist is, and these 3 tenets. And the word I channeled was tenets. So 3 tenets of temple artistry. And yeah, I hope to also provide some reflections from my own experiences the last 6 years and how I feel that myself and many other people are bringing the knowledge back. So probably because our souls have had this specific knowledge from past life incarnations, but also because it's time. The frequency of the planet supports the remembrance of this art form. And to tell you the truth, maybe perhaps it never even left the earth in entirety, but just went back into secret places where it was practiced. And it's possible that actually the fullness of what temple artistry is has not been seen on our planet in a very long time because of the frequency of the earth. So before I get started, I just want to clear this space. This is a public space, and so I'm a highly sensitive person, and it's really just, it's being helpful to clear the space. And this is kind of a new practice I've been doing, but I just want to clear anything that is not within my own sovereign free will choice for truth, beauty, goodness, and evolution, life, all of the things that I, Emily, love so much. So clearing anything that is artificial, mechanical, de-evolutionary, malevolent, or not here within a resonance of unconditional love. Okay, sweet. Okay, temple artist. So let us define what a temple artist is. So a temple artist is one who chooses. Okay, when I first channeled this, the word that I heard was claim. So one who chooses or claims their body to be a temple. Okay, we'll talk about what this means. Where the divine version of self, okay, capital S, big self, takes up full residence. Let's read it again. One who chooses their body to be a temple where the divine version of self takes up full residence. All right, so there's a lot to break down here. So first things first is so much of the programming that humanity receives about their body is that the body is not divine. And the body, before it is fully purified and before the light body is fully communing with and connected to the divine self and communing with the divine source of all life, and all of the nadis and meridians and the vayus are pure and clean, the body might not be like the most divine place. But there is a choice to remember the body as a divine being, the human body. And there is just been so much programming, especially for women, that women's bodies are not divine. So much so that like the idea that God, source, original creator is feminine has been lost from many traditions. And so it's the memory of, in many sense, the womb where we all come from. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you came from a woman. You were birthed from a womb. And so in many ways, it's also the remembrance of what divine feminine is and the full, right? It's the full self, okay? If woman has been left out of what God is, the becoming a temple artist is the remembrance of that fullness of self. And there's so much about what the ego personality thinks that it is, that it has to unprogram, because there's been so much programming, literally TV entertainment programming around what is the cool thing to be, what is the most status thing to be, what are the best things to have, like all of this societal conditioning programming that takes us into the small little ego self. And so getting rid of that small little ego self that is trying to be, do, or have what the ego personality thinks it needs to be, do, and have, and really, and this is not easy. Like, I'm not saying that any of this is easy, but I'm saying that allowing, one, realizing what self is, okay? When we hear that in the ancient temple of Apollo was written as you entered the temple, know thyself. Okay, it's not talking about like knowing yourself and your personality and your own. I mean, yes, you have to do that. You have to begin to know yourself, but it's about knowing who you really are, like what your actual self is. And ultimately, you come to the realization, if you walk a spiritual path long enough, you will enter the embodied experiential realization that everything is one. And that experience, whether that experience is yet to happen for you on your particular path, or whether you have already had that experience is, I think, in any person's life, it's pretty mind-blowing. It's pretty disorienting. It often accompanies a very dark night of the soul after any person has an experience like that on their path. And, I'll speak personally for myself. I went into like these extreme bliss states for, multiple months. And I was in these states, really, the idea of self was completely 100% transformed for me, because it did not exist. And then, after that happened to me, I went into a very, very, very dark time of then realizing what is going on in humanity. And it was deeply disturbing, I think. I grew up pretty sheltered. I grew up with really loving parents that actually deeply cared for me. And so I think having the veil be lifted and being able to see what's going on with humanity and particular parts of humanity was deeply saddening to my soul. But this is just something that has to happen if humanity is able to come into its fullest embodiment of what it was originally, humans were originally designed to be. And, what is the point of being a temple artist? It's to be a creator. And I actually think that temple artistry anciently was a lot about sacred sexuality. I mean, temple artistry and sacred sexuality are kind of, I don't know if I want to say that they're like one of the same, but in many ways, if you think about the reason or the purpose of being able to fully embody an archetype, okay, the archetypes that make up the self, right? The divine, what is truly divine and whole and balanced, is full of many different archetypes. And it's not necessarily that as a temple artist, you will be embodying all archetypes. However, I think you maybe at the highest levels of temple artistry do have the ability to embody the full spectrum of archetypal frequency for I'm thinking ceremonial, like for ceremonial purposes. However, I'm just going to let the jury be out on that. I got to think of that one over myself. Okay. So here's the tenets. Okay. The first tenet is, it is your divine birthright to claim your physical body as a temple for divine source love. Okay. It is your birthright. Your body doesn't have to be a commodity. Your body doesn't have to be owned by a government, or your body doesn't have to be subject to a medical institution. Your body is yours if you choose it to be. If you understand that it is your birthright to claim your physical body as a temple. Okay, we're not talking about a vessel. We're talking about an actual temple for divine source love to reside within, to fully inhabit, for your full divine self to really take up space, and for that embodiment to be one that, is, yes, physical, but also emotional, etheric, mental, astral, Buddhic, celestial, like all of the parts of you really coming into the full, probably synergy, synchronization, harmonization, like the flow of the temple state. Okay, so we're not talking about you just being a vessel for some random energy, thought form, thought body, entity, principality, being. We're talking about divine source love being what takes up the residence. And that is a process, okay? That is a process. That is a choice of the heart. From an outsider looking in, that will look like you're making sacrifices in certain instances, but it's not really a sacrifice if you understand why you're doing it, why you are, it's like if we made a pros and cons list. Anybody who chooses to be a temple artist, or maybe doesn't choose themselves but is divinely chosen or soul contracted, that is happening for a reason. And I know in my own path, I didn't really go looking for this path. I mean, I could go back to different little moments in my life and be like, oh, maybe that was when I chose that path. But I remember being in my Denver apartment in Low-High, Colorado, and, one day being in meditation, because I've been a lifelong meditator. I grew up with a grandfather who taught me to meditate when I was very tiny, and then 2 parents who meditated often. So that was just part of being me, is like having prolonged periods of sitting meditation. And I remember I was in my PhD program, and we were always talking about, my PhD program was a very, very small cohort of people. And these people were worldly people from all over, all different types of walks of life, very different backgrounds, and poetic distillation, or what you channel and bring through particularly in the type of poetry that is, I would say, more of what the school I went to, more of like an experimental avant-garde American poetics, right? Because there are different types of poetry. But in this space, there was thinkers that felt like the poets were solving issues of morality that go on in the world, and trying to bring voice to these existential concerns that poets think about, and often their life experiences draw them into. So I was having these really deep conversations at the time and thinking, seeing my own self and seeing my family and the community in which I grew up in, and thinking, God, like, if people could just teach people how to love better, and teach them how to understand reality in a way that is in alignment with deep poetic truth. Okay, and then I received this vision of something called the Temple of Muses. And it came to me within the context of a poet that I did my dissertation on, Robert Blazer, and his fascination with Hannah Arendt's, I might be saying her last name slightly wrong, idea of recovery of the public world. Okay, so what does it mean to recover the public world? It means that the public world is what was lost when divine femininity was taken from the planet. And that which used to be public knowledge, and which used to be understood by many, the spiritual dimension of life, was taken away so that a toxic patriarchal situation could rule over these beings we call humans. And so recovery of the public world is about human beings remembering what is their divine birthright, what they've just forgotten. It's not necessarily doing something that has never been done before, although I think it is, because I think the frequency of the earth fell from this frequency, and it's going to rise into its frequency in a different way than the way it fell. And so in a sense, it is a really innovative, leading edge creational, it's like what Walt Whitman called the procreant urge, that impulse toward life that allows us to know ourselves at the deepest levels of what and who we are. Okay? All right. Now, the second tenet is that your soul contract matters. Okay? If you don't believe in soul contracts, and that's not like something that you understand or have personal experience of, I think you should invite in the understanding of soul contracts, because I think, not everyone is soul contracted to be a temple artist, because not every person's soul has the incarnational experience to do so. So this isn't like you can't do this, okay? You got to think of it as like, if this is something you want to do, it might take you lifetimes to do this. Or you might be able to do this within this lifetime, okay? I don't know that for you, only you know that for you, and you have to go within yourself and learn that for you. So, but I do know that what I've seen is it does matter. Your soul contract matters. And it's for a lot of reasons. It has to do with your birthrights, your inheritance, your divine inheritance, your karmas, and karmas are good and bad, okay? Sometimes we forget about that and we just think karmas are bad, but there is such thing as good karma. And it has to do with your soul contract. Why your particular soul chose to incarnate. And so it's not for everyone. I guess that's what I'm trying to say is being a temple artist isn't for everyone. And if you're not meant to be a temple artist, it probably doesn't call to you in any way, shape, or form. So I would just say that what will be available to you in your palette of temple artistry will be based on your unique soul contract, your unique soul stream, your unique monad, your unique reason for being, right? Because we all are here on different soul contracts for different reasons. And we all have different missions and purposes based on those soul contracts. So yeah, that does matter in terms of this. All right, and the third tenet is the path of purification is a necessary component for all temple artists. Okay, this cannot be done without really, 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 and I mean really deep levels of purification of the emotional body, all those places you've been harmed in this life or past lives, of your mental body, all the ways you've been programmed this life to not think in alignment with truth, and all of the mental patternings that you may have inherited from ancestors. All of this has to be purified. A deep purification of the body. And in order to do this, you will have to have fully awakened Kundalini. Okay, some people are born with awakened Kundalini. This has already happened for them in a past life. Other people have partial risings that they come into this life with from a past life. And again, if you remember a few weeks back when we showed the image of the subtle body and the aura, and we talked about how some people can have really powerful spiritual gifts, but they can have really diminished or impoverished emotional bodies or mental bodies and be doing a lot of harm. We talked about how that probably happened in the case of Yogi Bhajan. He seemed like he had a lot of spiritual power, and he might have even come into this life with some pretty powerful spiritual incarnations, but the way he showed up in the world, the way he treated women, the way he treated the women in his life was basically a demonstration of the parts of him that were deeply immature. And so that's just an example. And I mean no disrespect to Yogi Bhajan's soul. Like, I hope he's well and on his path. And if you are a follower of him, that is great too. So it's just, you have to just go where your heart leads you in life. I've definitely learned that. It's like all about listening to what feels like the best path for you. And then, being able to get all the stuff out of the way that keeps any one person from really following that deep heart call, because it's the heart's call. It's the heart's urge, because the heart is the great balancer. The heart is the below and the above being balanced here. And so when we listen to our hearts, then we follow the thread that is most balanced. Miatu arra inki atuku ishk taka ur. Okay. And that is all. That is all I wanted to talk about today. So if you've stayed all the way to the end and you feel you have received something from this message and you would like other people who would like to find this message, help them find it, you can always give a thumbs up or leave a comment or send it to somebody who you think may resonate. All these things help this message make it to those people who need it. And I believe that there are a lot of people who have and are soul contracted to step into temple artistry work this lifetime, because we've got a lot of healing to do on a mass scale, and we need everybody who has this ability and who has this soul contract and who has the inner fire and authority to really be a divine embodiment on earth, walking the path. Okay, because this doesn't happen to anybody all at once. This isn't like a, here you go, you're this suddenly. No, it's a day by day by day, choice by choice by choice, choosing of your own unique destiny. And again, I feel like I didn't really choose this path, but I must have chosen it from a higher soul contracted perspective. I think, walking in was one of the most destabilizing experiences that I've ever had, and the people who have also walked in that I've talked to are also very deeply destabilized, because during that experience there is a separation that takes place between your body and your mind, and your soul, your spirit. It's just, unless you have actually had the experience, it is impossible to explain. But there is a gift that is given. There is a gift that is given in the understanding of the nature of reality when you are somebody who has that experience. And so, it teaches you something about consciousness that I don't know if you could learn otherwise. And that's what I'll say about that. Just, and so my entrance into this space, I don't know how to get onto this path other than that this path finds you. And this path is presented to you. And that's how it was for me. There might be other ways. There might be other methods. There might even be places you could go to get initiated into this type of thing. But I don't necessarily know if initiating ourselves into certain dogmatic systems is really where the new earth vibration is at. In many ways, I think that we're moving beyond the idea of devoting or giving oath or allegiance or pledging ourselves to some hierarchical elitist system. That's really, I think, out. And I think it's more an inward motion and an inward awakening. And so I know that there's many people out there who are going through profound spiritual awakenings, and they don't have a teacher, they don't have a guru. And it's hard, it's challenging, it's deeply challenging when you don't have that support. And there's also reasons for systems and finding systems. And if you're born into a lineage or a system, then I think that that's a sure sign that lineage or system is for you. But really what we're all trying to do is create that communion with our divine self that is in full communion with divine source, so that we don't need a middleman. We don't need You know, we don't need ChatGPT. We don't need ChatGPT. We have our own brains. We can have our own thoughts. Okay? We don't need to, as my dear friend said to me the other day, he said, I don't need to ask the app what the weather is. All I need to do is go outside and look at the sky. You know, like, we're forgetting how to be embodied. We're forgetting our sovereignty. It's really important that as many people as possible can bring in their spiritual sovereignty into an embodied state and be a living example to others. And so with that, I will end this message. I think I will be giving a light language codex. Mia tuku ishkataka ashku tuku uya kai ikitaka ur e. Mia kush ata ataka ash. Mia uku ara kiatu mia kiata sutu ataka ash ara mia kai ara mia ka ita ara